In the 1970s, football wasn't played on manicured turf under perfect skies. It was played in mud, blood, and chaos, a brutal dance where toughness wasn't optional. It was survival. And in that unforgiving arena, one man came to symbolize everything that decade stood for. Fierce, uncompromising, fearless. His name was Jack Lambert, and he didn't just play linebacker, he redefined it. To understand how good Jack Lambert really was, you have to understand what he represented. He was more than the snarl, more than the missing teeth, more than the quote about quarterbacks wearing dresses. He was the embodiment of football's soul, raw, unfiltered, and merciless. But behind the image of intimidation was one of the most intelligent, instinctive, and complete defenders the game has ever seen. The beginning of a legend, it's 1974. The Pittsburgh Steelers are on the brink of something extraordinary. Head coach Chuck Noll has been quietly building a team that would come to define an era. The foundation is already there. Mean Joe Green, Jack Ham, Mel Blount, Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris. But something's missing. The defensive centerpiece, the voice of control amid chaos. That year, in the second round of the NFL draft, Pittsburgh selects a relatively unknown linebacker from Kent State University, Jack Lambert. At first glance, Lambert doesn't look the part. At 6'4" and barely 220 pounds, he's wiry compared to the massive linebackers of his era. Scouts worry he'll get swallowed by NFL linemen. Some even predict he'll be out of the league within a few years. But Chuck Noll and defensive coordinator Bud Carson see something different. Lambert isn't built like a tank, he's built like a weapon. Long arms, explosive speed, and a motor that never stops. He's not just another player. He's a force of nature waiting to be unleashed. From his first day at training camp, Lambert's intensity is undeniable. He's not loud, but he's relentless. Every drill, every hit, every moment, full throttle. By the end of his rookie season, all doubts are erased. Lambert wins NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, and the Steelers finally have their missing piece. The rise of the Steel Curtain. By the mid-1970s, Pittsburgh's defense had become something out of mythology. They called it the Steel Curtain, and for good reason. It wasn't just a defense. It was a wall of violence and precision. Between 1974 and 1979, the Steelers won 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons, an achievement unmatched at the time. Their defense ranked among the league's best every single year. In 1976, they delivered a defensive performance so dominant it remains unmatched, allowing just 11.6 points per game and recording 5 shutouts in a single season. And at the center of that storm stood Jack Lambert. While teammates like Joe Green and Jack Ham commanded headlines, Lambert was the mind that connected it all. He wasn't the loudest or the strongest, but he was the commander, the field general who turned chaos into order. Lambert read offenses like a book. He recognized alignments, spotted tendencies, and barked adjustments seconds before the snap. Teammates said he had an almost supernatural sense of where the ball was going. He made the defense feel alive, responsive, adaptive, and ruthless. As a result, the Steelers didn't just stop teams, they broke them mentally. Playing against Pittsburgh in the 1970s wasn't just difficult, it was demoralizing. And Lambert was the reason why. Fear made flesh on the field. Jack Lambert looked like something out of a nightmare. The narrow eyes, the wild hair, the missing front teeth, knocked out during his rookie season, which he refused to replace. He wore them like battle scars, physical proof that he'd paid the price of violence and didn't care. But his intensity wasn't just an act. Lambert's approach to football was deeply personal. He believed in physical dominance as a moral principle, that the team willing to suffer more would always win. Every hit he delivered came with purpose. Every tackle was a message. You're not welcome here. One moment that immortalized his ferocity came during Super Bowl X. When Cowboys linebacker Cliff Harris taunted Steelers kicker Roy Gerela after a missed field goal, Lambert didn't hesitate. He sprinted across the field, grabbed Harris by the jersey, and slammed him into the turf. No hesitation, no warning, just raw emotion. After the game, when reporters asked him if he went too far, Lambert gave one of football's most famous quotes. "If you're going to protect quarterbacks, you might as well put dresses on them." That line didn't just define Lambert, it defined an era. It was the 1970s distilled into a sentence: brutal, unapologetic, and proud of it. The mind behind the madness. It's easy to mistake Lambert for a savage, but he was anything but reckless. Beneath the fury was one of the most cerebral players in NFL history. He studied opponents relentlessly, not just plays, but personalities. He wanted to know what made quarterbacks nervous, how running backs reacted under pressure, which linemen had weak footwork. He treated every game like a chess match, except in his version, every move ended with a collision. Teammates often said Lambert knew the opposing offense's game plan better than they did. He called out screens, audibled blitzes, and shifted alignments without even looking to the sideline. He was also a master communicator. In a defense full of egos and legends, Joe Green, Jack Ham, Mel Blount, Lambert was the glue that held it together. Green once said, "Jack was the one who made sure we all worked as one. He was our conscience." That's the difference between good linebackers and great ones. Most players react to chaos. Jack Lambert controlled it. Redefining the linebacker from 1974 through 1981, Lambert was the gold standard for middle linebackers. He made 9 straight Pro Bowls, earned 6 first-team All-Pro selections, and in 1976 won the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award, but stats alone don't tell his story. In fact, many of his greatest moments were never recorded because the NFL didn't officially track tackles or forced fumbles until years later. Still, the film tells the truth. Lambert wasn't just a run stuffer, he was a complete defender. He could drop into deep coverage, shadow tight ends, and still blitz with surgical precision. His 28 career interceptions are proof of his incredible instincts and awareness. More importantly, he was one of the first linebackers to truly command an entire defense. Every snap ran through him. Every adjustment started with his voice. That kind of responsibility was rare, and it made the Steelers nearly unbeatable for nearly a decade. More than a player, a symbol in Pittsburgh, Jack Lambert became more than a football player. He became a cultural icon. Pittsburgh in the 1970s was a steel town, rough, proud, and hardworking. The people saw themselves in him. The missing teeth, the muddy jersey, the no-nonsense attitude. Lambert wasn't just playing for them. He was them. He didn't care about fame or endorsements. He didn't smile for cameras or chase headlines. He cared about one thing. Winning NFL films turned him into a legend. The fierce, wild-eyed man of steel who played every snap like it was his last. But what they captured on film wasn't a character. It was the truth. Lambert didn't play tough. He was tough. For a generation of fans, he became the face of football itself, unpolished, unforgiving, and pure. Greatness in context. Critics sometimes argue that Lambert was a product of his environment. After all, he played behind one of the greatest defensive lines ever assembled. Mean Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Dwight White, and alongside Jack Ham, one of the best coverage linebackers in NFL history. So was Lambert great because of the system? Or was the system great because of Lambert? The answer lies in how his teammates talk about him. Joe Green himself said Lambert's leadership was the difference between good and legendary. Ham called him the brain of the defense. Even Chuck Noll credited Lambert's field control as the key to their dominance. In 1976, when Joe Green missed time due to injury, Lambert didn't crumble. He elevated. That year, the Steelers delivered their most dominant defensive stretch ever, and Lambert was named Defensive Player of the Year. That's not a system. That's greatness. Could he play today? Every generation loves to ask the same question. How would legends from the past perform in today's NFL? It's tempting to think Lambert's style wouldn't translate. After all, the league is faster, more open, and heavily skewed toward offense. Linebackers today have to cover slot receivers, read run-pass options, and survive in a game built to protect quarterbacks. But Jack Lambert wasn't just a bruiser. He was one of the most intelligent, instinctive players the position has ever seen. In modern football, those traits are priceless. He'd probably bulk up with modern training to around 245 pounds. He'd have access to nutrition, film tech, and analytics that didn't exist in the 1970s. And with his range, instincts, and aggression, he'd fit perfectly in today's hybrid defenses. Think of him as a combination of Fred Warner's intelligence, Ray Lewis's intimidation, and Luke Kuechly's awareness. Would he dominate in 2025? Absolutely. Not because of nostalgia, but because his core traits, leadership, anticipation, physicality, are timeless. The end of the Iron Era. By the early 1980s, time started to catch up. Injuries began to pile up, and the NFL itself was changing. The rules were shifting to protect quarterbacks. The passing game was becoming more prominent, and the days of pure defensive dominance were fading. In 1984, a devastating turf toe injury, something that sounds minor but was career-ending back then, effectively ended Lambert's time in the NFL. At just 32 years old, he walked away. No farewell tour, no emotional goodbye, just silence. He retired with 4 Super Bowl rings, 9 Pro Bowls, and the respect of everyone who ever lined up across from him. And then he disappeared. No TV career, no endless interviews. He moved to rural Pennsylvania, coached high school football, and lived quietly. He didn't need to remind anyone who he was, because everyone already knew. The legacy of number 58, so. How good was Jack Lambert actually? He wasn't the biggest linebacker ever. He wasn't the fastest, but he might have been the most complete. He combined intelligence, intensity, and instincts in a way few have matched. He turned defense into art, every hit precise, every movement calculated. He led with his mind as much as his body. Ray Lewis had the speeches. Dick Butkus had the intimidation. Mike Singletary had the eyes. Jack Lambert had all of it. He was football personified. The steel in the steel curtain. The heartbeat of a dynasty. The image of everything the sport once stood for. He didn't need endorsements, catchphrases, or modern marketing. He had something better. Respect. The kind you earn in blood and sweat, not in followers and hashtags. When you watch his highlights today, the grainy footage doesn't make him smaller. It makes him larger. You can feel every hit, every stare, every ounce of controlled rage. You're not just watching a linebacker, you're watching a philosophy, one that says toughness isn't about talking, it's about showing up and never backing down. That's Jack Lambert. That's why, decades later, his name still echoes whenever people talk about real football. He wasn't just part of the steel curtain, he was the steel in it. If you enjoyed this look back at one of football's greatest defenders, make sure to stick around, because legends like Jack Lambert don't fade. They live on every time the game gets hard, every time a player digs deep, and every time football reminds us what it used to be about: courage, pain, and pride.